This is Dr. S. the Legend. He's back. I want to talk about the war in Iran. My thesis today is fool me once, fool me twice, but don't fool me a third time. So, my theory is that the United States is a target of Iran, not necessarily Israel. So what happened specifically? On March 3rd, 2026, Iranian officials met with United States representatives. And the Iranians told our representatives that they had enriched uranium to 60%, and within weeks they were going to enrich it to 90%, and that was weapons grade uranium, I believe uranium-238. And therefore, they would be able to make nuclear weapons. They also had 20% enriched uranium that they could enrich to 90%, which is weapons grade, and that would take them 3 to 4 weeks. They said, the Iranians said, that they would be able to make 11 bombs in a number of weeks, crude nuclear weapons. Question is, were they bluffing or were they bragging? Now, do you want to take the risk? Does the government want to take the risk? I wouldn't take the risk with these people. Now, critics say, well, they won't be able to reach, even if they have nuclear weapons, they won't be able to reach the United States. We're safe. No. So, they don't have a delivery system to reach the United States. They would need ballistic missiles to attach the bombs to. These are called internet ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles. Our modern missiles are 10 to 20 times more powerful than Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which were only 30 kilotons. Today's weapons are 300 to 500 kilotons of explosives. Possible they could get ICBMs from Russia, China, or North Korea, but unlikely. So, is there a threat to the United States? And my answer to that is yes and no. Also, they said, in addition to building 11 nuclear weapons, that they were going to acquire a significant number of ballistic missiles and drones so they would be able to overwhelm any country's defenses. Is this something we should worry about? I would say so. So, here's my scenario. Being able to build 11 crude nuclear weapons. Again, fool me once, fool me twice. Let me go back to a little history. We got the old Japanese Kamikaze, suicide war planes of World War II, and the old 9/11 attack. It took place in 9/11/2001. Suicide missions. My theory is they would put nuclear weapons on multiple passenger planes, 11, to deliver nuclear weapons with or without passengers. Now, just to remind everyone, historically about Hiroshima and Nagasaki, we dropped these bombs from 2 B-29 airplanes. These weapons were used as what's called an air blast. The bombs don't hit the ground. They're detonated about a mile up. Of course, today we have sophisticated weapons. They can go 5,000 miles per hour, and they're accurate to within like a city block. So people are thinking high tech as far as Iran's nuclear capabilities. I'm thinking low tech. I'm thinking Kamikaze and 9/11. 11 bombs, 11 planes. How do we identify and stop them when planes could be flying at 500 to 600 miles per hour? Would they hit the United States? Yes and no. Now, at any one time, there are 12,000 commercial planes in the air at any given time. The Iranians would only need one of the 11 planes to get through and to detonate a nuclear blast. Now, how would they do this? I was going to say this is in rocket science, but that's a bad analogy. So they had, previous to the war starting, they had a plane called the Airbus 330, a range of 7,250 miles. I'll repeat that. 7,250 miles one way, because this would be a suicide one-way mission. I don't know if these planes are still around, whether we've taken these passenger planes out. I believe the target would be a place called Guam in the Marianas. It's a United States territory. Also, we have two neighboring islands, Saipan and Tinian. It's U.S. territory, U.S. citizens, and U.S. military at Guam. It's also a possibility that the targets would be our base in South Korea and our base in Japan. In South Korea, we have 28,500 troops plus dependents, wives and children. In Japan, we have 54,000 U.S. military troops plus dependents. Now, I would pick Guam because Guam is 5,870 miles from Tehran. It's within the range of the Airbus, which is 7,250 miles. Guam has a population of 168,000 people. There are 6,453 U.S. troops and dependents on Guam. Guam is a U.S. territory, U.S. citizens. This would be a suicide mission, a one-way attack, like the Kamikazes, like 9/11. And if it was successful, what would we do? Would we retaliate? Would we nuke Iran? I don't know. There's also the possibility we have other territories and other, even a state, American Samoa. I think that's too far away, over 9,000 miles. Hawaii is 8,000 miles. In any case, so these planes would take off. They would fly a normal flight pattern, and then they would deviate to Guam. And it would be very hard. They would maybe fly under the radar, and it might be very hard and have enough time to stop them and to know what's happening. Now, if I came up with this scenario, then you would think that the military knows about this and that the Pentagon knows about this possible scenario, because we've been through this before in history. And I hate to keep repeating, fool me once, fool me twice. We saw this with the Kamikazes. We saw this with 9/11. Are we going to let this happen? So let me briefly talk about nuclear weapons before we get back to our original scenario. And I think that would be a real possibility. 11 planes, 11 bombs, one target. You only need one plane to get through and destroy the entire island of Guam. It's not a big island. So nuclear weapons. How did this all come about? Very briefly. So two scientists by the name of Leo Salazar and Enrico Fermi in the late 1930s built a nuclear reactor at Columbia University and caused a nuclear chain reaction. This is called fission. And they came up with the idea that there would be a tremendous amount of energy that would be released and the possibility of a bomb. So they took their idea to Albert Einstein, and Einstein agreed with their scenario. And then Salazar wrote a letter that Einstein signed and approved, and on August 9th, 1939, they sent it to President Roosevelt. And President Roosevelt was impressed. So by October 21, 1939, the United States started buying and accumulating uranium-238 for the building of an atomic weapon. And by June of 1942, we began the Manhattan Project, the project to build an atomic bomb. Three main sites: Los Alamos, New Mexico, Hanford, Washington, and Oak Ridge, Tennessee. And there were other sites. Now, the interesting thing about Einstein's letter, and you can read it on the internet, his last paragraph on the letter was, gee, the Germans know about nuclear fission. So they could build a bomb. So one of the big reasons we decided to build a bomb was the Germans knew about it. You think the Nazis, if they had acquired a nuclear bomb, you think they would have used it? Absolutely, positively. How about Imperial Japan? Absolutely, positively. So, would Iran use a nuclear bomb? Or use it as nuclear blackmail? Absolutely, positively, in my opinion. They are homicidal, suicidal, death cult. All three regimes, Nazi Germany, Imperial Japan, and the Iranians there. All three regimes, homicidal, suicidal maniacs. Absolutely have a nuclear bomb. Now I mentioned the kamikazes, and very few people, they may have heard about it, but they're not really history a long time ago. So let me give you a crash course in the kamikaze. It's translated from the Japanese in the divine wind. These are suicide planes. The purpose of a kamikaze plane, they were used late in the war, first at the Battle of Leyte Gulf, October 21, 1944. Japanese were getting desperate. So the purpose of the planes with a bomb on board was to crash into our ships and to kill as many people as possible. The plane was the weapon. This was not foreseeable. Our Navy did not foresee that this would happen. They didn't expect this. They fooled us. Of course, in time we developed countermeasures. Reconnaissance aircraft, construction of many anti-aircraft guns on ships, the use of 5-inch bombs or weapons, putting more and more of them on the ships. All told, there were 2,550 kamikaze missions, of which 18% hit our ships. Last count, 37 United States warships were sunk, and double or triple that amount were damaged. 5,000 United States sailors were killed, another 5,000 were wounded. We did not see this coming, but we adjusted. I mean, this was horrific. A suicide plane? It wasn't in our wheelhouse. We don't do these things. Only deranged, dictatorial, homicidal, suicidal maniacs do this. And the Imperial Japan was desperate at this point because the war was going very badly for them. What about 9/11, 2001? We sure didn't see this coming. At least I didn't see this coming. Sorry, I wasn't around for the kamikazes. A little bit after that. So what happened? A lot of people, we talk about 9/11, but there's a lot of people that didn't remember this. They were too young. So what happened? There were 4 hijacked airlines, and the airlines were taken over by 19 terrorists with box cutters to disable the pilots, to kill them, and to attack certain sites in the United States. There were 2 attacks on Twin Towers in New York City. Both of them were brought down. One plane crashed in the Pentagon in Virginia, and one crashed in Pennsylvania. In all likelihood, the passengers found out about this and were able to disable the plane, and unfortunately they all died. The person behind this was a guy by the name of Osama bin Laden, and his organization was Al-Qaeda. Bin Laden's plan, he wanted 16 planes, but he couldn't find enough pilots, so he had to be satisfied with 4. By the way, this was an attack on the United States, not an attack on Israel. According to Iranian propaganda, the United States is the big Satan. Why would they waste their time attacking Israel with a nuclear weapon when they can go after the big brother, us, just like a 9/11? Almost 3,000 people were killed at 9/11, plus the 19 terrorists. Of the 3,000, Almost all of them died at the Twin Towers, except for 244 people who were passengers on the 4 airplanes and those that were killed at the Pentagon. To date, over 1,000 individuals' remains have not been identified. No proper burial. This is horrible. Who died? Civilians, EMTs, police, firemen, average Americans. We did not see this coming. This was horrific. Homicidal, suicidal maniacs. Again, fool me once, fool me twice. You're going to let the Iranians fool you again? Is the government going to let this happen? And if I see this, they have to be seeing this, the officials in Washington. Otherwise, why not go to war? Or go to war to stop the Iranians? They said they want nuclear weapons. If they want them, they're going to use them. And they're going to use them by putting them on planes, in all likelihood, and crashing them into targets. Kamikaze, 9/11. Now we've adjusted. It's interesting. There are critics that say, well, there's no more endless war, no boots on the ground. Haven't we learned from the past? And this is costing a fortune. Well, we've adjusted ourselves like we did with the kamikazes. We're going old school. We brought out the B-52 bombers, first introduced in 1952 and used in Vietnam in what's called old-fashioned carpet bombing, using 500 and 1,000-pound bombs. And we got a lot of these. The B-52s are paid for a long time ago. So are all the bombs. The 500 and 1,000-pound bombs, we used them in World War II. They're inexpensive and they're highly effective. We've also brought out the Apache helicopters and the A-10 airplane known as the Warthog. They were first used in Operation Desert Storm in 1991. And there's been a movement by Congress and the Defense Department to retire the A-10. We have about 200 of them. And smart people decided we should keep them because there may be a use for them in a situation that's not high tech. Both the helicopter and the A-10 have a 30 millimeter cannon. This is a highly destructive weapon. By the way, the Apache and the A-10 have been paid for a long time ago. This cannon can shoot 5,000 rounds in a minute. It can destroy small ships and medium-sized ships on Orion's coast. What they're doing now is they're using these weapons to clear the Strait of Hormuz, where all the oil tankers pass through. So any boat that's unidentified, our helicopters and our A-10s will take them out. Old school, using older weapons that are highly effective. We don't have to pay several $1,000,000 for an advanced missile or drone. So we've adjusted our war methods to suit the war. We're using low tech, we're using high tech. Obviously our goal is to prevent Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon, and secondarily to hopefully get rid of the homicidal, suicidal maniacs that are in charge, the death cult that's in charge of the regime in Iran, similar to the Nazis in Imperial Japan. And hopefully we can get a regime change and open the Strait of Hormuz and get the oil flowing. And by the way, the United States only gets about 1 to 2% of its oil from through the Strait of Hormuz. We are energy independent, the United States. We don't have to depend on any country for oil or natural gas, for that matter. Again, most important, fool me once, fool me twice, but you better not fool me a third time. We did not anticipate the Japanese use of kamikazes in World War II. These were frightening attacks. I remember seeing movies about this, documentaries that the Navy produced after World War II. Must have been terrifying for our sailors, knowing that these planes would crash right into their ships. And having gone through the attack on 9/11, knowing how horrifying it was, and there's all kinds of documentaries on this that I've witnessed and lived through at the time. So again, what Iran can do, if they were allowed to acquire 11 nuclear weapons, use them, put them on airplanes, just like we did in Hiroshima and Nagasaki in World War II, and head east. And a likely target would be Guam, U.S. territory with U.S. citizens and a military base and U.S. military personnel. It's also possible that they could attack South Korea with our base there and our large numbers of troops in Japan. Highly unlikely that they would be able to get as far as Hawaii. But I think it's a good idea that we certainly stop the Iranians. They cannot have a nuclear weapon. Absolutely, positively. Because otherwise, they're going to fool us again like we were fooled before. And we won't be fooled again. Now, I am Dr. S. the Legend. I want to reiterate, this is who I am. It is Conversations with Dr. S. the Legend. Conversations with Dr. S. the Legend. That's me. By the way, I have my Phillies hat on because next week baseball season starts. And I can be reached at this email. I'm putting it up and I will read it. It's one word. Dr. S. the Legend at gmail.com. I'll repeat. Dr. S. the Legend at gmail.com. Now, you may have noticed I've got some beautiful paintings behind me as a backdrop. Other podcasters, they have library books or they just have something that's blank. Now I've got beautiful art behind me. How many podcasters have beautiful art? And my answer to that is none. Now, all of these Western scenes and rodeo scenes, cowboy scenes, cowgirl scenes can be found at this website. Putting it up here for the video people, pbensenior.com, and for the audio people, pbensenior, BENSIGNOR.com. These paintings are available to be viewed at the website. Oh, and by the way, they are also available for sale if you like the situation. Again, let me repeat. This is very important. If you fooled me once and you fooled me twice, you better not fool me a third time. And if I'm thinking this, then I'm certain that the people in our military and our administration and at the Pentagon know what the Iranians were thinking and know how they were going to use their nuclear weapons. And they were going to use them against us. This is Dr. S. the Legend, signing off.